Hello, a very good evening. Welcome to tonight's news, mega news at 6 p.m. at the maiden edition of our English Bulletin, coming to you live from our studios on the 10th Avenue Extension, Greater Estate. But first, the headlines. Minority slams government over delay in briefing Parliament on Burkina Faso attack. In business, CD recovers modestly on external tailwinds. $1 equals 11 Ghana cedis 70 pesos at the Forest Bureau. On the international front, Mexico hands 23 inmates back from jail during the wave of violence. My name is El Samuels. The news is also live on all our social media handles. According to well as is live on YouTube and not forgetting X as well. So we're live across the entire country and the continent of the world. This in our first major bulletin for this evening, we'll look at the stories that is making headline that's been running around throughout the day. And our first major stop will be at the happenings where the minority has criticized the Minister for Interior and Foreign Affairs and also the acting Minister of Defense for failing to brief the House on the killing of 8 Ghanaians in Burkina Faso 1 week after the tragic incident. The minority, the minister's absence amounts to a serious lapse in government security oversight and response mechanism, describing development as a failure of the state security system in protecting its citizens, particularly those traveling to high-risk countries. Speaking to the media in Parliament after a joint minority committee meeting, the ranking member on the Defense and Interior Committee and Member of Parliament for Asen South, Reverend John Entem Fojo, said Parliament has waited for over a week without receiving any official briefing from the security sector ministers.
There is no dignified repatriation of their bodies.
You have 1 minute more.
Even before the Ghanaian authorities will get there, belatedly, the bodies have been buried. So we are denying their families the opportunity to have a dignified burial for these people. Mr. Speaker, when the Elwak incident occurred and 6 people were killed, immediately that same day, an urgent statement was admitted. Minister for Defense came here and briefed the House. Till now, 6 days, no minister for national security, minister for defense, minister for foreign affairs, none has had the courtesy to even appear before this House to brief the House. This goes to show the negligence on the part of the state and those whose responsibilities it is to protect our citizens.
He disclosed that the minority members on the Foreign Affairs, Defense, Interior and Security and Intelligence Committee formally wrote to summon the 3 ministers to provide details on the circumstances surrounding the attack.
For the failure of the government and the state to protect these citizens, even beyond our borders, for security failure, they met their untimely death. Mr. Speaker, I want to first point out the security failure on the part of the state, because these deaths and these killings are avoidable. The geopolitics of the sub-region is public knowledge. The terrorism threats and crisis we have within our neighboring countries, especially Burkina Faso, is one that is not in doubt and one that does not start from yesterday. For the failure of the state to even provide travel advisory ahead of time, to advise travelers to Burkina Faso and to identify the high-risk areas, and for these traders to be led into the slaughter is most regrettable and most barbaric. Mr. Speaker, was there any effective joint intelligence sharing? And what intelligence was picked up by the people whose job it is to ensure that these intelligence are picked up and Ghanaians traveling to these hot zones are warned ahead of time? What safe passage arrangements were put in place to ensure that Ghanaians traveling to these hotspots were accompanied if indeed they had to go and return?
Mr. Fojo added that the minority has proposed what he described as a credible security and diplomatic arrangement to strengthen protection for Ghanaian citizens both within and beyond the country's borders. Meanwhile, the ranking member on the Foreign Affairs Committee, Samuel Abu-Jinapor, described the incident as a terrorist attack that requires urgent government intervention. He called for a bipartisan parliamentary inquiry into the killings, the renegotiation of the Accra Initiative, the immediate completion of the forward operating bases to strengthen Ghana's border surveillance and security architecture. The Minister of Transport, Joseph Bakari Nakre, has clarified that the renaming of the Kotoka International Airport will not require parliamentary approval, noting that it was originally named through a decree in 1969. According to the minority, the minister's absence amounts to a serious lapse in government security oversight and response mechanism, describing development as a failure of the state's security system in protecting its citizens, particularly those traveling to high-risk countries. Speaking to the media in Parliament after a joint contrary to the call for a bill to provide legal backing for the decision, the minister pointed out that the airport in Ghana have historically been renamed through executive instrument, citing the examples of Kumasi and Tamale Airport. Briefing the press in Parliament after releasing a statement on the official renaming, Joseph Bakari Nakre said calls for legislation are unfounded. On the backgrounds to how the airport was originally named, the minister explained that the decision stemmed from a decree enacted.
You remember that it came as a result of the NLCD 309. It was a decree that was brought to set a trust to cater for the families of Kotoka and other soldiers who were killed along that time. And it happened that he was killed at the forecourt of the airport. And so if you look at the decree, its intention was to set a trust to take care of the families of the soldiers who were killed. And so if you look within it, they decided to honor him by introducing or renaming the airport after him. But the purpose of the decree was to establish a trust. Now, there was no any legislature in Parliament to operationalize it. And so there is no anything in it for Parliament to amend or Parliament to legislate. It was an executive order that was given to recognize somebody who was killed at the forecourt of the airport. And the rightful thing is for us to come to an executive announcement again that the name is reverted to its original name.
Explaining the primary objective of the decree, the minister emphasized that the main focus was to provide support for affected families.
You remember that it came as a result of the NLCD 309. It was a decree that was brought to set a trust to cater for the families of Kotoka and other soldiers who were killed along that time. And it happened that he was killed at the forecourt of the airport. And so if you look at the decree, its intention was to set a trust to take care of the families of the soldiers who were killed. And so if you look within it, they decided to honor him by introducing or renaming the airport after him. But the purpose of the decree was to establish a trust.
Addressing the question of parliamentary involvement, the minister maintained that no legislative action was required.
There's nothing to change at the international level. The only thing to change is the signages and the billboards that we have. But Kotoka, as a company, they already have the vendors who produce their letterheads on daily basis for them. So it's not a new contract. It's just a matter of Kotoka is now out. The same vendors who were doing their letterheads, their stamps, are the same companies to continue to now change. Just a removal of Kotoka and it will be Accra. So what will be the cost there? We are already renovating the airport. We are already doing construction of the airport to make it function properly. And some of those things would have been destroyed and rebranded. It's just the matter of the Kotoka out and the Accra in. So what will be the cost? Even though there will be some cost to it, but it is not that cost that somebody will care about. It is going to be a minimum because of the renovation. The costs involved will be very, 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 very small.
The minister stated that the appropriate course of action would be through an executive decision rather than legislation. He also noted that the renaming has taken effect and that the new name will soon be reflected in official document on the airport signage. So away from the story, we move straight away. We go for a commercial break. You're still listening to the Evening Mega News at 6, the maiden edition of the English version of the Mega News at 6 p.m. We'll be back after this break. Welcome back. In business, Citi recovers modestly on external tailwinds. $1 equals to 11 Ghana cedis, 70 pesos at the forest bureaus. Over the past fortnight, the cedi encountered made demand-driven pressure in the opening week as anticipated. However, it clamped back losses in the latter half as broad-based sell American sentiment underpinned external support. In the interbank market, the cedi appreciated by 0.09% against the US dollar, 0.86% against the pound sterling, and 1.16% against the euro, closing the mid-rate of 10 Ghana cedis 97 pesos to the US dollar, 14 Ghana cedis 81 pesos to the pound, and 12 Ghana cedis 93 pesos to the euro. The positive momentum filtered through to the retail segment, where the currency strengthened by 0.6% against the US dollars, 1.29% against the pound sterling, 1.11% against the euro. It settled the period at mid-rate of 11 cedis 63 pesos to the US dollar, 15 cedis 55 pesos to the pound, and 13 cedis 50 pesos to euro. Meanwhile, the cedi began the week going from 11 Ghana cedis 70 pesos at the retail market. Its year-to-date gain stood at 4.95% to the American greenback. And that does it for the business from the Mega News at 6 in the evening. We turn in our attention before we go to the international front. We go for a quick break. We'll be back. On a foreign front, police in Mexico are searching a number of inmates who sprang from a prison in the Puerto Vallarta during a wave of attack launched at Jalisco New Generation Cartel CJNG on Sunday. Puerto Vallarta, a beach resort in Mexico's Pacific coast, was among the towns where the CGGN blocked roads and also touched cars in retaliation for the killing by the security forces of their leader, Nacional Osarego Saventi, known as El Moncho. During the arrest, armed men roamed one of the prison gates with a car, paving the way for 23 prisoners to escape, an official said. More than 70 people, including 25 National Guard members, were killed in the operation to capture El Moncho, the violence which followed. Juan Pablo Hernandez, Security Secretary for the state of Jalisco, says his office was working with other states to capture the fugitives. Officials have not yet released details of the identity of the prisoners who escaped. Cartel members touched several vehicles across the Puerto Vallarta on Sunday. Tourists and locals were urged to seek shelter and not venture out, and footage they recorded showed black plumes of smoke rising above the popular beach resort. A number of airlines temporarily halted their flights, and at least two major cruise liners said the ships would skip planned stops in Puerto Vallarta. The Mexican government said on Monday that most of the roadblocks erected by the cartel members has been cleared. And that brings us to the end of the maiden edition of the Mega News in the evening at 6 p.m. But before we leave a few a recap of our top stories. Minority Islam's government over delay in briefing Parliament on Burkina Faso attack. In business, cedi recovers modestly on external tailwinds. $1 equals 11 Ghana cedis 70 pesos at the Forest Bureau. On the international front, Mexico hands 23 inmates sprang from jail during the wave of violence. So that brings us to the end of For more news and log on to MBN360. Remember, the news came to you live from our studios on the 10th Avenue Extension, Greater Estate, Nungwa Adugono. We're also live across our social media handles, Facebook, YouTube, and X on MBN360. My name is El Samuels. Do have a good evening.